The aim of this conversation, before I ask you who you are, is to make all the 30-plus-year-olds, which is maybe most of the room, feel deeply uncomfortable with how young and efficient and good and polished Alexia is. So you thought AI was coming. She's also coming. But yeah, Alexia, maybe who are you? Where do you come from? What do you do? And why are you here?
Well, my name is Alexia, and I'm half Spanish, half Italian. I guess in this city, it's important to state that. And I grew up mostly in Spain. I went to uni in Pamplona, which is a very small city, but thankfully it was a very international uni. Growing up in a small place in Spain, in Girona, the ideal thing is you go to uni to get a degree, to get a job. So there's not a lot of creativity in that process. The purpose is to make money out of your degree. And so I decided to study international relations and law until I realized that law was not for me. And I dropped out of law, but continued with international relations. And thankfully, my parents, for some reason, have always trusted me. So they trusted that that was the right thing for me, with the caveat of like, as long as you eat after your degree, that's fine. That was a bit of my journey. And there I discovered public affairs, and I loved it.
We're going to get into that,
okay.
But so where do you work now?
Oh, now I'm working at Digital Europe, and I'm doing outreach mainly to member states, and I also do a policy part to just keep it serious.
Right. Cool. And maybe just how old are you? Just so people
I'm 25.
25.
Yeah.
25. Remember that? Are you a tab opener or a tab closer?
Opener?
Do you know what a tab is? Because I did ask one of our guys this before the show, and he was like, bar tab? Genuinely.
I mean, I thought about 3 different tabs, and all of them were yes.
All
opener.
Oh, so you're an opener. Okay. What do you think that says about you, that you're a tab opener?
I think I thought about tabs like also like browser tabs. That was my main thing. I never close tabs on my laptop. I'm super unorganized there. I'm very organized on the outside. People really see me super put together, but my laptop is a mess. I just have to create folders to hide things there so people will not judge me. My previous IT manager was like, Alexia, I can't touch your laptop. This is crazy. I'm like, sorry. So yeah, I have everything running all the time.
Do you think being a tab opener serves you well in a place like Brussels?
I think a lot of people don't see the value in having everything open all the time. They prefer to have things very tied up and have, a reasoning for everything, and you just have what you need, which sometimes cuts a little bit some people's wings when you have to do other things.
It's a zero tab kind of town, I feel like.
Yeah.
Have you heard of there's a whole movement, zero tab.
Really?
Those people who close all their tabs at the end of the day.
The same people that read all their WhatsApp messages, they read all their emails. Yeah. The people that don't like the notifications can't live with that.
8 hours a night, have whoop straps, weird people. Just optimize everything. Okay. And as a child, what did you want to be when you grew up? So, some people here would say you're still a child.
Oh yeah, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Okay. But I had a period where I wanted to be a veterinary, but I think everybody goes through that until you realize that it's not all cute animals. And then I wanted to be a film director. I wanted to do movies, and then I discovered international relations. Like, oh, that might be it.
When was that switch from film director to international relations? Like, what age? Where were you?
I think I was like 14, because that's the thing. It was like, oh, that's a very hard industry to get into. So and
you were thinking that at 14?
Yeah.
That's a hard industry.
Yeah. It's like, oh, how am I gonna get there? What people do I know that do that? Like, who can I ask? Things like that. So it seemed like very complicated. And I remember that the university I ended up going to, those things, people always fit into an ABC, right? So they make you take a quiz. And the results were to be a nurse or to be a international relations, whatever you can do with that. So it was kind of, I guess, because at some point I said that I like to help people, so it went directly into being a nurse. Right. For some reason, yeah.
Because I was going to say, what were the crossover skills that you felt you had then to be a film director or a nurse that have served you well in Brussels? I'm
very outgoing. So I felt that, and I always I'm a very analytical person and I observe a lot. So I felt that, like if you have to be a film director, you kind of have to see the spots, the photography of the things, the scenography. I've considered myself a creative person, but then life convinced me that I wasn't. So I thought that that was the perfect thing. I also thought that the director chairs were really cool. That was also a big point.
Yeah, I feel, now that you say it, I feel like you think you're a creative person until you go to like a creative university or like the party of a creative person who's at like the art school in your town and people are wearing like lampshades on their head and shit. And you're like, it's not me.
I was not that alternative.
Yeah. Yeah, the people before us here were alternative widows, yeah. Okay, cool. And so if you were speaking to your younger self who'd just done that test, and maybe you took the test really seriously, I guess, because it kind of impacted your decisions, would you say anything different to what the test or the people who gave you the test said?
Honestly, I think that at that time, exactly, my idea was like, this has to be profitable. And the idea was like, oh, you have to get a degree to get a serious job. And at that point also, my parents don't do anything related to this. So I was kind of, a bit blinded of like, what can I actually do? And the options were think tank or become a diplomat. Honestly, I would just say that you can trust your gut a little bit more. Like now that I'm here and I've been here for almost 4 years, yeah, this is my 4th January here, I've realized and I've grown much more in confidence also and in who I am, and I've seen that I can trust my instincts a bit more, which at that time no. So whatever, even if the test would have said that I could become an engineer, I'd be like, oh, then if the test says so, I guess that's the thing. But then I obviously gave some thought to it and realized that it doesn't have to go to mass, that thing, but still.
And so your entry point to Brussels was an internship consultancy. And I feel like a consultancy, do you think that's a good entry point into Brussels, consultancy life? Because you mentioned you were an extrovert, you like to talk. How did that kind of serve you well? And like what other, maybe more like hard technical skills did you pick up there that then have served you well in this next job?
I think consultancy serves the purpose that it serves. And it really depends on how you do it. But like in everything in life, a job can be great and you can really, suck at it because your personality is not for that job. And for me, consultancy, well, obviously was an entry point to companies, to a lot of people that obviously, like for me, was all new and seeing what everybody has done before and the, amazing possibilities, meeting people that have studied biochemics and then are working as a creative director, things like that is really impressive to see. And that allowed me to know a lot of people. And it also gave me a lot of work ethics because deadlines are deadlines and you have to meet them all. You have a budget that is what it is. And for me, that, for example, I hated the part of monitoring. Doing a 15 report at the end of the month with, just summarizing what Politico has said. For me, it's really, especially when after a while you just had ChatGPT that could summarize things for you. So it's like, well, this is kind of pointless for me. But obviously, if you have to do, you have to do it. And if you're the junior in the team, you just have to go along with whatever everybody else does. But you have to also trust that you'll bring a value that people will eventually see. So what I did, for example, was trying to have, if there were new projects, new clients, I would rather do faster some other things and work on more clients than rather keep doing whatever I had to do because I had to leave at 6 p.m., for example. So for me, that has given me a lot of knowledge in a lot of things. I've seen so many industries, so many things, that if you then have the capacity to just take everything and then use it at the correct time, then it can also kind of look, I don't know if impressive, but when you're talking to someone, like, oh, that person knows what they're talking about just because you're connecting the dots of how many things you've seen in the last year.
And were you conscious of that when you came in, that like, oh, I'm going to do this and this and this to try and get to the next step? Were you like strategically planning, or were you sort of, because like you're nodding, I feel like maybe you were, but maybe it just kind of happened naturally? Because a lot of people who come to Brussels are kind of floaters, right? They're not sure. Still, there's the College of Europe crowd. Yeah. But then there's the people who are like, I landed here because of like a partner or whatever, and let's see how it works. And they're probably not as strategic, but were you strategic?
Yeah, like I've always had, so I always plan like 5-year plans. Then I'm super flexible, and I go along with whatever life comes. Like I said, I graduated in May 2021, and in September 2020, I decided that in September 2021 I wanted to be in Brussels, regardless. So I worked for it. During that year, I just spent the year doing research about what jobs, what people needed. I started using LinkedIn also just not to connect with people, but also to see what they've done before. And then I could see what agencies, what people were asking for, and what was the market like. And I found an internship that was really not related to anything I ever wanted to do. I was like, well, as long as it pays my rent, I'm fine, and then I'll do the rest here. Because what I knew was that Brussels is a very networky city. And I was like, well, I just have to start meeting people and meeting the right people. But I have to be here. So I came here, and things worked out differently. My plan was to do 6 months in the private sector, 6 months in the public sector, then go get my master's and eventually maybe come back here. But that didn't happen. I stayed at the internship 20 days. Then I went to work for the consultancy because things worked out like that. And I stayed at the consultancy for 3 years. And now I'm at Digital Europe. And I don't know exactly what my plans are. But so I'm flexible like that. But obviously, I did think that I was like, where would I like to be? And then you can, because it's easier when you have an objective and a goal in mind to then be able to recognize the opportunities that might come. If you don't know where you're going, you might, just start acting crazy and things don't relate to other things. And now we're such a globalized era that if I have to send my CV online, people were just gonna look at that. And if I want to go to work, I don't know, in the US, in China, whatever, I'm not gonna be able to talk to someone so that they can see through my personality and be like, oh, she's cool. So obviously I just rely on my CV. So I had that clear as like, okay, I wanted to make some sense. And obviously at that time also, I was like, I have to do something that is serious. Like, obviously my parents and my family don't understand exactly what I do, but we're getting there. But it needed to be serious. So consultancy was kind of easy to understand, and it was serious policy stuff.
Right. Damn. Impressive. Geez, I had a question, then I got intimidated, and I was like, oh my God.
Sorry.
You've made me flustered. One of the things I was thinking was like how, if you had to like list your top 3 core skills now, I know you wouldn't have to do that because people can just look at your LinkedIn and like your reputation speaks for itself. But you've kind of already said how people should probably think about their career or think strategically when they first arrive, when they're young. Where's that led you now? So like I said, what are your top 3 skills that you think really serve you well in your job?
I didn't know this until recently, that I had a chat with a previous manager that told me you're very good with people. And I didn't know that was a skill because for me it was just the way I was, which is also weird because I'm an only child. I don't have cousins, so I've always only been with older people. But I make friends very easily. And what he told me is like, you make people feel at ease in a meeting, and that's an important skill to have also when you're talking about important things and when you're pitching in consultancy. And I think that's something that who I was. So I didn't know that was a skill, but I guess that's one thing. As I said, I'm very analytical. I connect the dots. I'm very detail-oriented with that. So that has helped me enormously to just be able to have conversations with people, which is what leads you to anything here in Brussels. And that's the second one. And the third one, I think, is a bit my cultural background. I'm from many places. I grew up between Spain and Italy. I've traveled a lot with my parents and everything. And inside Spain, my mom is from one place, but I grew up in another. So that here in Brussels, where everybody's either Spanish or Italian, helps a lot. And really knowing those languages and knowing also some cultural things from their part, like, also helps you a lot to integrate yourself in a place and to integrate people into your life and your workspace.
I was going to ask you where you think that kind of confidence comes from, since you mentioned you were an only child, didn't have many cousins or any cousins. How does someone cultivate that, if they can?
I know at some point when I was a teenager, I shift personalities. I started to be more open and to make more friends and things like that. And really just stop overthinking it. For me, that was a big thing, just to go for it and never think about what the other person will think about you, but the other way around. Be like, oh, do I actually, like this conversation, or how to, just make it not about yourself, but make it to fulfill sort of a purpose that you may have, and that might help you to be more at ease and don't think things that you can't control. You can just control your part. And for me, it was just also a lot of, just going to places and feeling that you don't belong there and things like this. So it's a lot of, learning and trying again and then succeeding or not. But.
And why did you actually, I don't think we actually covered this. Why did you choose policy communications? I mean, I'm calling it policy communications. You're policy manager, maybe you see your job slightly differently, but it sounds like you could have done many different things, but you chose to stay here after you had that initial little experience. Is it just because you like Brussels? This is an international town. You kind of felt at home here. Like, why did you, I mean, you got a 5-year plan, so maybe you don't plan to stay here, but yeah.
I didn't know that policy communications could be a thing until the last 2 years. I feel, like I said, I was very passionate, and I am very passionate about public affairs, and Brussels is the right city to do that, because obviously here is something that is really understood.
But why are you passionate about public affairs?
Because you can actually, depends on what you do, but you can actually make a change on certain things. And there are so many things that you can do to send a message across, besides sending amendments to an MEP's assistant with a very super nice drafted email.
Give me an example of another thing you can do then. If that's like basic, what's not basic?
So I feel like you can convince the people first. And the commission is another thing, but even if we're talking about capitals, politicians are moved by votes. So if you can convince things, a lot of the things we talk about here have an impact on the consumers. So if you can convince them of your idea, for example, I think it's a great example to use taxis versus Uber, for example, or any platform for driving, whatever. If I'm the one suffering the consequences of having just one system that has the monopoly and prices whatever, then I can have an opinion about it. And then if people start having opinions on one side or the other, the decision that was purely political, whether Uber enters the market or not, people actually went to bars and be like, oh, so what do you think? Be like, no, poor taxes, they pay so much, to get the license, whatever. And now just these Americans come here and take everything from us. Or the other way around, it's like, well, I'm tired of having, a 20-minute ride cost 50 euros. And with Uber, there's much more fluctuation and you have a fixed price, for example. So it's easy, you could go to the MEP and explain that. But if people actually have an opinion and people start talking about it, at some point that will reach to the MEP. They're people just like us.
To go randomly back to the tabs thing, what do you think is the right composition of an office in Brussels of tab openers and tab closers? Because Brussels strikes me as a town of wannabe tab closers. Whether they actually are, I don't know. What's the composition there?
Well, first of all, I think people have been convinced that being tab closers is better than being tab openers. So I think obviously you need everything. Like, for example, be me by myself, I would only get this far. So I always need people that are like super into things, like super, square people that get you to where you have to go and that remind you like, oh, we actually said that we would do this thing or whatever. You always need that balance to get somewhere. A lot of creative people in just one team will end up talking about how the weather is in Brussels and not getting things done until one's like, oh, I have this idea. Like, yeah, cool, that's it. Like, you actually need someone that be like, hey, remember that we talked about this 3 months ago.
And so do you think Brussels needs more of one than the other right now?
Right now, there's a lot of tab closers. I feel like there is space for more people that are not afraid to do less serious things, I think. Like I said, people have been convinced that one thing is more useful than the other, but there is value in doing things differently. And it's true that a lot of the companies that are here, now I see that there's a bit of a shift, that there's younger people coming to the office, but there's still this idea of like, oh, we have to get the more senior people in the room, and that's the thing. So obviously, for example, from a consultancy perspective, convincing a client to raise a budget for something because there could be value in it, they're like, oh, that's new.
Yeah.
No, what if we fail? Yeah. But that's a risk that you should be willing to take. But obviously here it's different because also deadlines are tight. So it's not like, usually when consultancies come into play and when creative people come into play, it's sometimes when you just have something to solve. And that's what should be changed. There's a lot of, call it branding, that you can do during the year to actually make people understand, recognize, and know what is behind the logo, what is behind a group of people, that it's not well done here. You have the Netflixes of the world that obviously you know what they stand for. But what about a smaller company that is now an SME developing an AI system of whatever? They all, like there's that part that can be much more exploited.
And is there a different dynamic, because you're now an association, a lot of people in Brussels work for associations. There is clearly a different dynamic between consultancies and associations and corporates and associations. Has that changed since you've been at Digital Europe, and how have you adjusted your thinking?
Well, the thing is that you don't work with budgets. Well, I mean, you do, obviously, the association has the budgets, but it's different. For example, if I have an idea and I would like to develop it and I get the green light from my manager, then I can just spend some time developing that idea. So I can be creative in that. Whether it's different if I have to build those hours to a client that then will come and be like, we didn't ask for this, so just stick to what we agreed. And then also you have much more going on, clients coming with other requests and stuff, so you can actually just sit down and be like, oh, we could do this differently. And even if you do, you then do it on your own time, and then you try to pitch it. And if it doesn't go,
Is it easier to pitch to clients, hey, we should do it this way, or to members?
I think it depends on what it is. I feel members have a fixed fee that they pay yearly, and if it's not super controversial, obviously, then it's easy to convince them that that is positive for them, or that will make more noise for some of their things. Whether a client, if there's so much paperwork that goes after that, like you have to agree that the statement of work changes, agree with the budgets, and then depending on the financial year where we are, that might not get approved. So you'll have to wait a year, and then it's too late to do anything because that has already passed.
Switching gears a bit, because you're still young, but you have all this great experience and all these ideas, how would you change Brussels, the EU bubble? You can talk about Brussels more broadly if you want, but the EU bubble, how would you change it for the better? Or what kind of changes would you like to see over the next 5 years that would make your life and job better? I
think leaving more room to just brainstorming. And I feel like that's something that the working online has, obviously it's very positive, and I love home working when I can and go back to Spain and enjoy the sun and all that. But I think there's a lot of value in being in an office and just waste some time in just thinking, which I feel like we don't dedicate enough time to be bored and to think about things. So doing that as teams and putting that in place and just allowing people to just say even stupid things, like, because then you can say a stupid thing and then that can grow into something that is actually doable and that it's actually meaningful for something. But if you don't allow that, then also people that may come here at a young age, for example, like me, if you never allow them to speak, then they just don't create the ability to actually speak in meetings. And me the first, I feel super intimidated when I'm with the senior people. I'd rather talk about some things after the meeting. I'm like, hey, I thought that this could be cool, but I didn't want to say anything in front of the manager just in case they look at me like, are you dumb? Which I feel like it's a fear that should be eliminated. And that might be a way of
Why do you think people have that fear? Because of the kind of old culture of Brussels? Or like, where does that come from in your... And how did you break it down? I assume you did eventually just start speaking up. How did you kind of get the courage to do that?
At the consultant, when I just started, and I was like, huge imposter syndrome. I was like, what am I doing here? I don't know, like, what's going on? I don't know how to do it and everything. Someone posted on LinkedIn a quote that said, it's better to stay silent and let people wonder if you're stupid or not than talk and confirm that. I was like, oh my God.
Definitely wasn't this guy.
No, he wasn't, probably not. I'm like, oh my God, like that has to be the rule of thumb here. Like, so I was really scared, like, because obviously, you never can guarantee that what you're saying is actually something smart or not. You just have to hope that it's, people will receive it in the right way.
But did you not take courage by the fact that so many things that all the older, probably men around you were saying were like really fucking dumb?
Sometimes, yeah, honestly, that was something that gave me a lot of courage. Like, nobody knows what they're doing.
Right.
I was like, I can do whatever I want because nobody knows.
Yeah. And they're all speaking like different levels of English. Like some of them just totally, like you can't understand what the hell he's saying. And people allow it. People are like, Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, oh yeah. And then maybe behind their back, like, just ignore it. And I'm like, why? Yeah. So that's something I've learned to navigate also a little bit. And, but also, just the part of not overthinking what you're going to say, and just, you don't control everybody else's response. So you can think that I'm stupid. As long as I believe that I'm not, I'm fine with it. Yeah. And I'll find people that will think that I'm not stupid. Yeah. So that's, I think, a huge part that helped me. And I was going to say something else,
how we can improve Brussels or the EU bubble. Any ways you think we can, like, it can be improved? So you've mentioned this kind of cultural shift to allow for more like creativity and stupid comments, people being back in the office, popular with bosses. This is why they love you, I guess. Yeah, anything else that we could do in Brussels? Or that Brussels could be like, I don't know, it can be stupid. It can be a stupid idea.
One thing that I love that I think in Europe it's not really implemented, I think in the US might be something more common. If you have an intern, besides letting that person come to meetings with you, allow them to develop a project of their own. They can learn the business much more, and then they can apply it to something else. Because I feel like sometimes people go from internship to internship, and I was very lucky because I did only the 20-day internship in Brussels, so I didn't have to go through that loop of getting internship after internship. But obviously, a lot of them is just to say, oh, I've worked there. That's it, it's in my CV. But they don't actually, and you should be investing in those people to actually learn a skill that they can apply to something else. That's the purpose of the internship. That's why some of them tell you that you're not being paid because they're paying you with experience. But to me, experience does not equal to a fancy name of a fancy company in my CV.
And I have to ask this because maybe it's useful for some people. I love the things you've spoken about here now. How did you use that, I assume you did, as leverage for your next job? So you're a manager now, so already your kind of title is higher than it was before. I assume your salary is probably higher than it was before. How did you package that to be like, this is what I want and that's what you should give me?
Honestly, I'm not that good at doing that yet. And also I struggle with that also in the consultancy of, like being offered an X amount of raise and be like, okay. And then complain about it with my family and have super compelling arguments that my family like, yes, Alexia, you're right. But then I was not able to do that because there's always that crippling thing of you're not enough, you're very young, you don't deserve it. And I had that being used against me many times, like, oh, you're just very young, so you just have to be patient. Like, yeah, true, but I'm doing the job of another type of person. So you don't get to tell me, like, you should be thankful that you have this opportunity at 25 because I've worked for that. And for me, I mean, the transition from the consultancy to the trade association was a bit different because, like I said, it was a bit of someone seeing my value from before and then sort of asking me to join that. I was a bit more relaxed. Was not me just applying for things and then having to convince someone that I'm worth more than someone else.
You're not underpaid at Digital Europe?
No.
Cool. It was good to get that on camera.
And the team is great too.
Team is great.
Just stating.
The final thing I wanted to ask you was actually the same question I asked before, but if you can make it more about personal things, like, so you're Spanish Italian. Tell me what you miss about home that you maybe wish there was more of in Brussels, even if it's totally impossible. And then tell me the thing you most hate about Brussels and the thing you most love about Brussels. And it can't be that it's so international or can't be fries, can't be waffles. No.
Okay, so what I miss the most, obviously the sun. But besides that, I think sometimes it would be so easy for me to just work in my native language that I've also started to lose here. Like I realized that I don't know how to talk about my work if it's not in English.
Yeah, it degrades.
Like, I don't know. So difficult to explain that to my family too. So sometimes this would be so much easier to explain in my native language or just to accommodate to, you know the culture much more here. Because it's very international, it's different to have to deal with a Brit than to have to deal with a Greek.
Oh.
So you have to adjust the way you speak. Also, even the English. If you go to a Brit,
they're morons. They don't understand that not everyone speaks like idiomatic English. So they're using dumb phrases like, why are you speaking like you're in Manchester when we're in Brussels?
Exactly.
I don't even understand your slang.
Exactly.
And you thought it was appropriate to use it in a presentation at the European Parliament. All right. And people's eyes just glaze over.
Exactly.
But,
so you just have to bring English, to whatever the level of the person. So that includes accents too, which is cool. Just changing your accent depending on who you talk to. So yeah, that's something that I miss, that I think that would be easier. So more convenient, let's say. And something that I enjoy about Brussels, you mean like as a city or as an environment?
Take it however you want.
No, nothing. No. I love Brussels. It's a really cool city, but it's a bit of an acquired taste. You don't come here loving it.
But tell me what's cool about it then.
Just that you have so many opportunities. It's a place where you actually, if you know how to do it and you know how to meet the right people, there's a lot that you can do for your own personal brand, I feel, and it's easier. And because everybody is trying to do it, you don't look weird. Like, I feel always a bit ashamed of like using LinkedIn, like, oh my God, I post once a year.
Do people back home, are they sometimes like, you're very active?
But I'm not very active. Like that,
okay.
Yeah, I tried, not try to be, I was like, oh, I don't want to be an influencer. I always try to be very like, homies with the people on LinkedIn and be like, like very low key. But I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there. There's not a lot of judgment. And something I don't like is that sometimes mediocrity is too allowed.
We can't, all right. We're not going to finish on that note. I'm like tempted to let you dig into that, but I think it speaks for itself. So the note I want to end on, since I asked you about tabs, what do you think, because maybe like without looking at your phone, what's like the weirdest tab you have open right now on your phone or your computer?
I don't have anything super weird.
Or the weirdest, so we can see how weird you are.
Well, I'm not a weird person. I don't know.
we will be the judge.
The norm.
Yeah.
I think on my phone, I have like a tattoo removal thing, but I don't even want to remove any tattoos. So,
but I
just
tattoos.
have it there. Yeah.
So, all right, so it's crossed your mind.
Yeah, but just to be like, oh, how much would it be? But it's not in my plans, but I have it. Yeah, and it's the first tab that I have opened in my phone. I have like 250 tabs on my phone. And at some point, I didn't know that was a thing, but at some point the phone tells you can't open it.
Crashes, yeah.
So you're forced to close them. Yeah. But I'm like, what if I need it?
Yeah.
Never touched it.
Cool.
But yeah.
Let's leave it at that. I'm like wondering what tattoos you have, but maybe that's for another episode. Cool. So thanks very much, Alexia. And thanks everyone else for being here, for listening. Can we eat lunch now? And after we clap.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks a lot.